Good morning. It's Sunday, June 7th, 2026. My name is Terry Morgan, and we are here for martial arts philosophy class. I have a couple of things that I'm going to cover this morning. The focus today is on connections and the idea that we are connected both within ourselves and to the natural world. The physical body, we're physical creatures, right? We need air, we need water, we need food. We need a cycle of light and dark, the diurnal cycle. We have to sleep. We have to sleep. And that is something that everything else needs too. Every other creature on the planet needs food, water, air, place to live, an environment that it makes it possible for that creature to live. So for humans, we need breathable air. We need food. We need water. We need to sleep. Birds, they need air. They need food. They need water. They need to sleep. We also procreate. We do a few other things. We play. And all of those things are something that we share with most of the other living things on the planet. I don't know that trees play. I don't. I wouldn't expect to. Kittens play. Puppies play. Most mammals, if we study the natural world and what mammals do, most mammals play. There's some level of play is the only word I've got that they all engage in. It is educational. It is a building block for something that we'll need later. But the idea that we share these essential things, I don't have a better word for that right now. Air, water, food, it's essential. If we don't have air, it's not going to happen. We're not going to be around very long. We aren't. The problems with food and water are equally serious, but not as, I'm going to say, not as necessarily fatal. We can only survive a very few minutes without air. Humans, we can't live that long. You can train yourself to manage your breath, and there are people who have done that to a great extent. We're talking minutes, not hours, minutes. I can go without food and water for several hours and still be okay. I can. It's easy. I can't go without air for several hours. And that is true of most of the creatures that inhabit this planet. That shared requirement, I guess, that connection, and connection is the word that I'm looking for here. Birds need air. Humans need air. We share that. We do. That connection to the natural world is my focus for this morning. As we develop that connection outside, we're also developing connections inside. And the more we can recognize how connected we are, the easier it is to pay attention to what the outer world, I'm with my notes over here, the easier it is to pay attention to what the outer world is telling us. What do we feel what do we think about? What do we feel? How do we, that idea of heart mind, that there's an essential perception that is part thoughtfulness and part feeling, a connection to that outer world, to the physical world outside. There's a bunch of birds outside and it's really annoying. I don't find it pleasant at all. I don't want to listen to that. Oh, listen to all the songbirds that are out this morning. It's wonderful. It's a great sound. I love listening to the birds waking up first thing in the morning. Same thing's going on outside. The only difference is my perception of it and how I've decided, because I've decided how I've decided that I'm going to perceive it. It's not a different sound for two different people. It's two different people hearing the same sound. The birds aren't deliberately trying to be annoying. They're not. They generally don't do that. That kind of motivation is not something I would attribute to birds. I wouldn't. Domestic cat might be annoying and doing it deliberately. Same for a domestic dog. A human? Oh, absolutely. Birds? Maybe. Some domestic birds, they're cockatiels and parrots and some birds that we keep as the humans keep as pets can learn to be very annoying. They can. And we can perceive them as being very annoying. That difference, is this a cute creature looking for attention? Or is it, oh man, not again, this is annoying? My perception is the only thing that changes in that scenario. How I feel about what it is that's out there is what colors my perception of it. It doesn't necessarily change anything other than how I see it. That part of myself, that part of who I am, that has that perception. When I was 20, I looked at the world differently than I do today when I'm 70. I did. When I was 30, I looked at the world differently than I do today. Those changes and the way in which we come to know ourselves is part of what we want to develop as we're working in the martial arts, as we're developing our skills in any of the physical arts. as we're developing how we look at the natural world. What do we see? I've talked a lot about this idea of quieting the mind, quieting the heart, letting go of appearances so that what's outside is what we actually see, that we're not confined to our own perception of what it is we're looking at. So I can look outside at the birds, I can listen to them, and I can see, as I did this morning, I can see two cardinals flying from one tree to another. I have an oak tree and I have a crepe myrtle tree, and they flew down from the oak tree into the crepe myrtle, and then they flew back up into another oak tree. That pattern, one flew after the other. Were they trying to, I don't know what they were motivated to do other than fly. I watched them. I could think about this one's chasing that one. It didn't seem so. I think they were both female. I didn't pay attention closely enough. I saw two red birds. That was as far as I got. And it matters. It matters. So two males, one could be trying to chase the other one away from its territory. Two females, the same thing. Male and female, the male could be in pursuit of the female. The female doesn't generally pursue the male unless she's got a nest nearby, and then she'd be trying to run him off, unless he was her mate. So there are all sorts of scenarios that I can imagine. What I observed was two birds, and they flew around in the trees. And it was something that was very natural. And it was something that reminded me of the connections that I'm talking about this morning. The connections between the two birds, the connection between the natural world and the events in the natural world, and what I was planning to teach in class this morning. Connections. The idea that as I'm observing, am I going to color what they're doing with my own ideas about what they might be doing, or am I going to simply observe? That idea as well, that I'm going to simply observe, or I'm going to actively put something that I think, my thoughts, into the scene. In practice, we pay attention to the idea of quieting the mind, of letting go of appearances. So, no, if I'm going to quietly observe, I'm not going to have some idea in my mind that colors what I see. I'm simply going to observe. And I'm going to look for my own connection to what it is I'm observing. Am I being active? Am I doing something? Am I moving around physically that has caused the birds to move? Did I open the door and make a noise that startled the birds and caused them to go to the tree, another tree? Was I standing quietly, not doing anything? Literally, just breathing. That air that we all need. In looking at those connections, in looking at the connections between the outer world and the inner world, and how we're developing our practice, Go back to this idea: quiet the mind, quiet the body, quiet the heart. Find that stillness within and simply breathe. Don't add extra thoughts. Don't try to interpret what the birds are doing. Maybe, at least not right now. You can do that later. Don't try to do too much in your practice. Your breathing exercises, you try and force it, it won't work. All you do is get yourself out of breath. If you're too relaxed and not paying attention, that's also not good. So, not too much, not too little. Understanding those inner and outer connections, how the mind and quieting the mind works to quiet the heart. And I've talked about this idea last time, about the idea that Shin, the character for Shin, it's the character. I just drew it on my hand. That character is translated in English as the heart mind. It's also translated as the heart. The emotional body that is connected through the energy and the spirit and the thought, the thoughtful mind and the heart mind. The heart mind, Shin. The thought mind, Yi. Those connections and understanding how they work to help us in how we're making the connections internally and with the outer world make a difference in how we come back to our perception of that outer world and how we develop our perception of ourselves. I'm going to close with a little bit from Lao Tzu. This is the Blackney translation. I use this book frequently for reminders of what the old teachings are, what they were, and for the clarity that Blackney brought to his translation. Excuse me. That he brought to his translation. There are a number of translations of Lao Tzu, and each of them gives another level of insight to how the translator thought about what the original meaning might be. This is from the 33rd verse. It is wisdom to know others. It is enlightenment to know oneself. The conqueror of men is powerful. The master of himself is strong. It is wealth to be content. It is willful to force one's way on others. Endurance is to keep one's place. Long life it is to die and not perish. The references in Lao Tzu, I've mentioned this before, are very esoteric. They're focused on the existence, that the essential existence, existential references. And this is something that I will cover. I'm touching on it now. The questions of existence have been around for a long, long time. What does it mean that we're here? What does it mean that I'm talking to you now? What do these sounds that I'm making mean? Right? That nature of existence, the nature of meaning. These are questions that philosophers have been asking for centuries, very many centuries. Laozi goes back 3,000 years, give or take. It depends on which scholar you talk to. I'm going to do this again. It is wisdom to know others. It is enlightenment to know oneself. This is the foundation for what I was talking about this morning. That we look outside, we see the natural world, we pay attention to what is going on around us, the birds flying back and forth in the trees that exist. We pay attention to our connection to the natural world. We look at opportunities, I do anyway, to connect in some way with the natural world. We go to parks, we have pets, we have encounters with places and creatures that we may not encounter in our daily lives. If you've ever been on a cruise, if you've ever been on a small craft, if you on the water, if you've ever been to a zoo, if you've ever been on a vacation that took you to a natural reserve or a large nature park, even a trip to a theme park where they have recreated something, rainforest. These kinds of experiences give us that outside part. How we respond to that give us the inside part. And that's one way we begin to know ourselves. How do I see this? Observing ourselves in these situations, observing ourselves in practice. Practice requires that we pay attention to what we're doing. What am I doing? What am I doing right now? I'm sitting here. I'm trying not to do a lot of movement because I don't want to be a distraction. I've got my hands kind of locked in front of my chest. They're not moving. I would like them to move, but they're not moving. That is part of my natural world. That is, I want to move my hand, right? If I do this through the whole series, if every couple of seconds you see me move my hands and I'm doing this and it's distracting. And it becomes annoying. I'd rather listen to the cardinals than the crow. I would. But I'm okay with the crow passing through. It's part of the world that I live in. It's part of my natural world. And it's fine. It's not something that I can't go out in my yard and put up a sign that says no crows in my yard. Only cardinals and songbirds are allowed in my trees. No squirrels. That'd be silly, wouldn't it? That idea that I can observe the natural world. I can pay attention to what's going on. And I can choose to participate. I can try and run the squirrels off. It won't do any good. They'll come back. I could just let them, leave them alone, watch what they're doing. And that's my level of participation, observing. It can be. I did actually a little bit more in this scenario. I planted the trees. I planted the trees. The trees wouldn't be there if I hadn't planted them. There's other things that would be there, but those trees wouldn't be there if I hadn't planted them. That makes a difference too, because when I look back and I think about what's going on, I'm watching the birds fly through the trees. I planted those trees. I watched those trees grow. They were small and they got big, and now there's birds in them. That perspective. It's not the birds are annoying. It's, okay, this is a nice birds. They're singing. It's a nice bird song. I helped to create the environment that those birds are now in. The trees weren't there. There's a sense of accomplishment that goes along with that. It's not isolated. It's part of the environment. How we connect with that environment. Maybe I didn't grow the trees. Maybe I'm just walking through the forest. That's something too. Understanding ourselves is part of what we want and we need to develop in practice. If I don't understand myself, if I don't recognize who I am, then I won't ever be able to come to terms with who I am. My practice will always be incomplete because my lack of understanding will get in the way of my perception. I will always be looking at and not looking in. Recognizing our own perceptions, recognizing how we think about things, how we consider what our place is in the environment, how we can improve our skills, and sometimes our environment. Sometimes just being present and calm improves the environment. Thank you for being with me here this morning. I appreciate your time. I will be back next week, Friday and Saturday, Qigong class. Friday from the student perspective and Saturday from the teacher's perspective. Philosophy class next week, Sunday morning. And this evening, as well as next week and for the next several weeks, I'll be reading from my book, The Ambassador. It's a fun, family-friendly sci-fi martial arts adventure. A lot of the principles that I'm presenting in this class are part of that story. Thank you.